All right, we're live with another episode of SCMP Live Chat Q&A, and today, man, we got some heavy hitters. Matthew Wells, I've been watching you for a while, man, over at the Body Lock. You guys do incredible work, covering stuff that the so-called mainstream media doesn't cover, topics, you know what I mean? And I feel like people, if you guys want to see a different perspective of the sport, you guys need to go over to the Body Lock. Shout out to Jake. I know Jake really well too. He's doing great work. I know you work with Matt, you work with him closely. I think you guys
Hmm.
were on. He doesn't like to show his face, but I see he came on the
Yeah.
fight competitor. How do you talk him into that, Matt?
It took everybody else being away for that weekend and me convincing him. I was like, just get on camera, just do it. Like, I don't see why you don't want to do it. But he's camera shy, so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
took a lot of convincing, but he finally did it. So
For
it was
sure, for
cool.
sure. Yeah, man. So I appreciate you coming on, and of course, Tommy T, aka the Lumberjack. You know, you've seen his work all over the place. What's the update on you, Tom? Like, I know you just stepped down from bjpen.com. What's the situation with you?
Yeah, that's it, man. That's the long and short of it. I've exited that post that I had for many years as the lead writer and editor at bjpen.com, and now just kind of grinding a little bit, doing the freelance thing, doing stuff for Bleacher Report still, South China Morning Post, obviously, and then just whoever else will have me.
All right, good,
Very
man.
cool.
Well, we're gonna get into this. You know, I explained the situation that we have in this live chat. Tom's been here for a while. He's been here a couple times, so he knows like the chaotic mess that we get into sometimes. And yeah, we got a couple topics, that I want to cover. But if you have questions, you have comments, put them in the chat, and we'll get into those. And first off, let's talk about the news of Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa, he seems like he's having complications with COVID, just like a few other fighters like Cody Garbrandt. What is it? The big guy on campus, Khamzat Chimaev. And man, I feel bad for him because there's a lot of people just dumping on him, like saying that, he hasn't recovered from the knockout, like they're just dumping on him. It's like, dude is sick. I mean, Matt, when you see that, man, like when you see people dumping on somebody that's sick, I mean, and they have to step away and take care of their body and take care of themselves. Hamza almost retired from these complications. Like, what do you have to say about those people, man? Like, it's confusing, man.
Those are my favorite and my least favorite people. I call them the hashtag MMA fans, that always say the most ridiculous stuff no matter what. It could be an injury where a guy has a broken leg and they're like, oh, you pulled out. Oh, you're scared. And it's just like, come on, dude. Like, they're just trolls. And like some of them I know they're trolling, but some of them you can't really tell because you look at their feed and it's just nothing but that stuff. It's ridiculous, man. Yeah, the guy seemed like he was like really, really going through it, and everyone was like, "Oh, you want to quit?" Like, come on, man. Like, we're talking about a guy who took 3 fights in a calendar year and dominated everybody. Like, why would that guy be scared of anyone? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and yeah, so hopefully, Paulo he gets better and he stays off the wine, and you know how it is.
Oh
He
yeah,
can't be on that wine too much. That
right.
that
Story of my
excuse.
life.
Tom, let's get into that. Would you consider that an excuse for the fight? He kind of inferred that he drank too much wine and he was a little drunk, and it gave ammo to Israel. That's all it did, I believe.
Yeah, I mean that he should have known what was going to happen the moment he uttered that excuse. I certainly have had some bad hangovers in my day. I don't perform at my best after the fact, and I remember one time covering some one championship fights in Japan and going to interview Edward Flying after a long night of drinking and just feeling absolutely haggard. And it affected my job performance, and I'm sure it would do so for a professional fighter for sure. That being said, I mean, he obviously wasn't. I mean, it wouldn't really have that much of an effect. It's not like this guy was hitting it hard all night. I think he said he had a few glasses of wine or something. And furthermore, I mean, why are you doing this the night before a fight? He said he couldn't sleep. I mean, like, there are other things you can do, run around the room a few times, eat a big meal or something. So nothing about that made sense to me. And he should have absolutely known what was going to happen. Fight fans are absolutely ruthless. He just gave them ammo there, and you shouldn't have been surprised.
That kind of reminds me of Lawrence Taylor. I don't know if you can compare Lawrence Taylor to Paulo Costa, but Lawrence Taylor, I believe he was smoking crack
A little different,
like before fights, and I was, or not before fights, before games, right? Or at halftime or something. If my memory, is correct, I remember that story coming out. Matt, do you remember that story of Lawrence Taylor like smoking crack and then getting like 20 sacks after the half?
Yeah, I mean, that crackhead strength is real, I guess. Yeah, I remember all sorts of stories about LT, man. And I remember him like on one of his movies, he finally like, joked about it. I forget which movie that was. But yeah, he had some crazy stories, man. That guy was something else. Like on top of being just a phenomenal athlete. He was smoking crack and at halftime. Like what? Yeah, he's wild man.
Yeah, it is wild. And so when you compare it like that, that's not really an excuse for Paulo Costa not performing so well, right? It's just like dude was, that dude had the worst performance enhancer, and he was out there doing his thing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the wine thing is just weird. I mean, if you really were hungover from wine, like that takes a lot of wine, I would think. But also to go into the cage and just taunt Izzy like he did the entire time, like, come on, man. Like, nothing about that when I was watching it said, "Oh, this guy's inebriated." No, he's just stupid. Like that's what I was thinking.
Now with him out, Kelvin Gastelum, he steps in on short notice. I feel like there's a few weeks still left, and my only concern with this is I like the matchup. I like the fight. They were supposed to fight for the title, and then Whittaker pulled out because his stomach was about to blow up, right? And I like the fight. It was bound to happen. It kind of, to be honest with you, I would rather have seen Whittaker just wait and fight for the title. I feel like he deserved it. I feel like he's beaten two guys that are in the top 5, and he did it convincingly. I don't understand why he has to fight another guy. Does the UFC hate Robert Whittaker, Matt? Do they hate him?
No, I don't think they hate him. I think they actually like him a lot. I don't know if he was just, I want to stay busy right now, because who knows how long Izzy's going to stay out, right? He could be out for a little bit, although he didn't take a lot of damage in that fight against Hyon. But who knows how long he's going to be on the shelf. I think he just wanted to, get in there and stay active. And they're like, hey, here's a guy in Kelvin stepping up to fight against you. So maintain that paycheck, So go ahead and get it done. I think it's a fight he can win and probably will win. So it's a good opportunity to showcase his skills again.
Now with Gastelum, my only concern, and I wanted to ask you, Tom, about this, is the weight. Can he make weight in time, or is he going to miss weight and then go in there and beat Whittaker and then just make a huge mess out of this? What's going to happen?
What a disaster that would be. I really hope that doesn't happen. I feel like he probably has enough time. He fought fairly recently, unless he was, hitting the pizza really hard after that win over Ian Heinisch. He should be probably good to go and make weight. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know, honestly. For some reason, I don't love that fight. I don't know if it's just the disappointment of the Costa and Whittaker fight falling through, or kind of. I feel like maybe it's not the right time for this matchup. It had a lot of appeal, obviously, when it was originally supposed to happen, but now we've, Kelvin has kind of lost a few recently, and Whittaker, meanwhile, has been on this, nice streak. So it kind of, I just feel like I'm just not that excited for it. Maybe that'll change as the fight gets closer, but certainly I'll be even less excited if Kelvin doesn't make weight. So hopefully he does.
Well, with this fight, I feel like Kelvin, he had a better chance of beating Whittaker when the fight was first announced originally back then for the title than now. I feel like Whittaker is better, way better, more in his prime now, and just firing in all cylinders. And it feels like whoever he steps in there against, even Costa, I would have put him as the favorite against Costa too. And he might steamroll him. Do you see that, Matt? Do you see like a steamroll, like a finish against Gastelum? He's making a mistake stepping in.
I don't know if it'll be a steamroll, but I think it'll be a fight where he looks good winning rounds. I mean, I think it could very well be a decision. His last couple of fights were decisions, but he looked good in those. He's just outpointing his opponent pretty much every step of the way, hurting guys. If he gets a finish, that'd be awesome. But I think it's just going to be one of those fights where he, kind of just shows everybody that he is still one of the elite in this division, finish or not. I mean, if he goes to decisions, I think it's going to be clear cut that he wins this fight.
Is it a title shot after this? Like, there's nobody else to fight.
Has to be.
Yeah, it has to be, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like you were saying, like he probably could have just waited and got his title shot. But yeah, if he wins this, and it would be absurd if he didn't get a title shot after winning this fight.
But then Izzy, he's out there doing interviews, I believe yesterday or today, saying that he's looking at the Till Vettori fight, and Till wins, Till will get the title shot. Man, what Izzy's calling shots, man? Like he's like, I'm fighting this guy. I don't care about this guy.
I don't like that at all. I don't like it. Especially because Izzy, Izzy's still the champion, yes, but he did just lose a fight. So how much leverage do you have, even though your loss was in another division? I don't know. I think at least for this next matchup, let the UFC dictate it. Go ahead and get a win under your belt again, defend that title, and then you can start, calling the shots a little bit. But yeah, I think if Whittaker wins this, of course it has to be him. I don't see anybody that would disagree with that. At least I don't think. I mean, obviously, if Till won, he would have an argument for it. But nah, come on, it's got to be Whittaker.
Yeah, what's this obsession with Darren Till? Like, what's his record in his last 5 fights? I'm pretty sure it's below 500.
Yeah,
Tom, are you a big fan of Till? I'm a fan of Till, but like him getting all these chances, man, at the top of the division and being ranked with so many losses, I believe, was he like number 5 or something like that? That's pretty insane, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't dislike Till at all. I think he's a really entertaining character, which I think is a big part of the appeal in his case. But he has this reputation as this really exciting striker, and honestly, I've never really understood that. He's a good striker, don't get me wrong, but it's not like he's knocking people out constantly or anything like that. He's a lot of decisions on his record. I think the reason that people are talking about him as a potential opponent for Izzy is just that he's got this ridiculous personality that will probably match up pretty nicely with Izzy's. There'll be some fun trash talk for sure. They kind of have like a bromance, they FaceTime sometimes. It would be an interesting dynamic. So I think that's the appeal there, and that's why it's possible that he would skip the line ahead of Whittaker, which in my opinion, like Matt said, is just ridiculous. I mean, Whittaker should be fighting for the title now, if you ask me, but obviously that's not possible.
Yeah, Eddie the Blasian says that Kelvin should have probably fought the Killer Gorilla Cannonier, and that's probably true. I feel like that's a good
actually recommended that matchup in an article I wrote after Calvin's last win. I might be wrong. I might just be making that up and taking credit for something that never happened, but I'm pretty sure that's actually one that I've suggested. I like that fight.
Alan Bones Jones is saying, is he ducking the Whittaker rematch? It seems like even his coach, Eugene Behrman at City Kickboxing, he's come out and expressed that they're more interested in the Till fight rather than the Whittaker fight. They feel like Whittaker hasn't done enough to get the rematch. Man, that confuses me, man. I'm like, he hasn't done enough to get the rematch. Like, what does he have to do? Like, beat everybody in the top 15 so there's nobody else left?
Yeah, that's weird. He's won 2 fights in a row, and he's like still at the top of the division. How many more do you have to win? What more do you have to do? And it's not like he fought unranked guys. He fought Till and Cannonier and looked good doing it. It would be wild if Till won, he gets the fight, and Whittaker beat Till in between that time frame. Like that just it would be mind-blowing. But I mean, again, I wouldn't put it past the UFC. They're doing all sorts of ridiculous stuff these days.
Yeah, they are.
People love that word ducking, and I think it's a weird one in this case because it sort of implies that Izzy is scared of Till or avoiding the fight, or of Whittaker and avoiding the fight for stylistic reasons, which is obviously ridiculous, given the way he beat him 2 years ago. Was that 2019 or 2020? That was 2019. Yeah, I mean, clearly he's not afraid of him. I think the reason that there's some aversion to taking that fight again is just that, it's not that exciting to them. You get, if you're lucky, you get 30 fights in a fight career. I think a lot of guys don't want to take rematches unless they're really big ticket rematches.
All right, now Cole Shelton chiming in. What's up, Cole? He said, just on Darren Till, I have some friends who don't watch MMA except for Conor, Masvidal, Izzy, but whenever Till fights, they text me to watch. So Till, he seems like he's popular with the casuals. He's created this character. When he was stopped by the police and he was just filming it live on Instagram or whatever, man, I thought that was hilarious. I thought he's just off the chain with his character, man. It's almost like he's created the character and he's just built it so much that now he has to live by it. Now he can't go back. You know, do you see that, Matt?
I see it a little bit, but also like that's who he is. Like he is just a big goofball. I got to spend some time with him behind the scenes the week of the Woodley fight, and just like when all the cameras are off, like the dude is just goofy. Like he's silly, he's playful. You know, he's hilarious. He jokes around a lot, and yeah, that's who he is. I mean, it's like it's not a game that he's putting out there. Like he really is like that silly and that goofy. I mean, the guy just loves life and loves the position he's in. So, you know, good on him.
yeah, good, definitely good on him. And the UFC loves him, and they're trying to push him for another title shot. And hey, if you're in that position as a fighter, you got to embrace it and take it, and don't go out there and say like, oh, I don't deserve a title shot. You know, there's been like maybe twice in the history of the UFC where guys have actually come out when they're the actual next contender for the title and said like, I'm not going to fight for the title. And those guys just evaporated and we never heard from them again. The biggest example is Hatsu Hayoki. I remember it was years ago, man. I remember he came in from Japan or from like Pancrase or something like that. And they were like, oh, he's the next big star from Japan,
He
blah, blah,
was
blah.
supposed to give Jose Aldo his first real test in the UFC.
Yeah. and he just disappeared, man. He got head kicked by Dan Hooker, I believe. Yeah, he got head kicked by Dan Hooker and he just lost a string. Just lost a bunch of fights, and we never heard from him again. And he went back to Japan and just got starched by local guys, and he just fizzled out real quick, man. So I guess he was right when he just told everybody he's not ready for the title shot, because he would have probably become like a like a what is it? A Ben Askren, you know, that kind, you know, posterized by Jorge Masvidal. He maybe would have become that. Maybe he didn't want to do that. Anyways, so you know, the middleweight division, man, it's kind of heating up. You know what I mean? Like, you know, everybody thought like, oh, Izzy's cleaned out the division, but really, to be honest with you, it's heating up because you got guys like, let's bring this up. Alan Bones Jones saying, you know, you got guys like Holland, man. He's like one of the guys that are coming up, finishing dudes, exciting. Big mouth, you know what I mean? That's what he calls himself. And he brings this up. It's like, if Derek Brunson beats Holland and Hall beats Weidman, have the ultimate middleweight gatekeeper fight between Derek Brunson and Uriah Hall. Matt.
Didn't they already fight?
Did they already fight?
They fought a couple of years ago. Derek Brunson, am I imagining that? Didn't Derek Brunson knock Uriah Hall out? Or was that a dream?
I think I want to say that sounds familiar. Let me pull it up here.
Yeah.
But let's just dig into that Derek Brunson Holland fight. You know, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it, quick predictions on that, because it's coming up this weekend. Matt, what do you think about the fight? Like, do you like the fight? Did it make sense for Holland to take on Brunson? And does Holland go in as a favorite in your eyes?
I think it makes sense for Brunson because he's a guy that's fought bigger names. And if he can go out there and get a win over him, especially coming off of that win against Edmund, you know, everybody wrote Derek Brunson off for that fight, myself included. I thought that was going to be a showcase for Edmund, and then he reminded everybody, he's like, I can still win fights in the UFC, guys. Like I'm not washed. And so he went out there and did that. And of course, what is it? The blonde hair thing now, you know, that's like the new character shift in the Derek Brunson. So it's like, we'll see how that plays out for him in this one, but I think it's a good fight for Kevin Holland. I mean, Brunson's ranked ahead of him. Go out there, get a win over this guy, because people are still not sold on Kevin Holland being a true elite of the division yet. So he's still got more work to do. And I think that's partially because of his personality. Like he's a little bit too kind of like, I don't know the right way to describe it. He's not like just too silly, but some people don't take him serious for whatever reason. I mean, the guy, what was it, 5 wins last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like the guy can get in there and crack people's, you know, heads off. So it's like, I don't know how many more fights he needs to take before people consider him that, but I think just, you know, fight at a time, bigger name each time. And then people slowly start to take him seriously. So if he beats Derek Brunson, a guy who's been in there against, you know, Anderson Silva, a lot of people thought he beat Anderson Silva. It's just another step along the way.
Yeah, with Holland, before we get to you, Tom, with Holland, I feel like he has a good combination. You know what I mean? Like he'll punch up. You know what I mean? In his verbal attacks on the division, and at the same time he'll play company man and fight whoever the UFC wants him to fight, and that's a great combination, a great employee, right?
Mhm.
That's what employee you love. You know what I mean? A guy that fits the mold, and that's what Holland is. So, what about you, Tom? What do you see in this matchup? Do you see Brunson, you know, biting off too much, or Holland, him
It's
biting off too much?
it's a good fight and makes a ton of sense, like you guys said. I think it makes sense for Holland at this point. Like, it's a nice step up, and it should answer a lot of questions about him too, right? I mean, he's such a violent guy. He just wins fights in the weirdest ways. Like, look at the Jacare fight. We'd never seen a fight end like that before, and he's almost being hurt by that, I think. Because all of his wins, as impressive as they are, they're sort of just kind of a fluky edge to them, where I think a lot of people are kind of thinking like, yeah, he's doing crazy things, but maybe he's not actually as good as these highlight reel wins are kind of leading us to believe. Fighting a guy like Brunson, who can, probably could conceivably out wrestle him, I think it's gonna answer a lot of questions about him. Can he stop the takedowns? Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense for both guys. And Brunson, like you said, just beat Edmund Shabazian and can knock off another prospect now and really kind of reinvigorate his career if he does that.
Yeah, man, it's a crazy situation in the middleweight division, and then you got Chris Weidman just hanging around, man. Like Luke Rockhold. You would have thought Luke Rockhold would still be around, and he's just fizzled off somewhere into the abyss where he's surfing and dating the bachelorettes or something. I don't know
Is
what
that
he's doing
really? I don't think
exactly.
that's an abyss, actually. Then that sounds pretty awesome to me. But
Yeah, no,
Oh, okay.
right?
He's on
Yeah.
he's on Fight Island / Paradise Island, and what is that show on Netflix where they bring the girls and the guys onto the island and then separate them and then bring in new girls and guys, and then they Temptation Island. Do you remember that a few years back?
Oh, I remember. I never watched it, but
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's
I know
like
what you're
that.
talking about.
I would see Luke Rockhold over there. That's where he is right now because he's not fighting, and Chris Weidman is hanging around, and it's like, man, I was a huge Chris Weidman guy, back in the day when he was fighting Anderson Silva. And I love Anderson Silva at the same time. I love both guys, you know what I mean? But then just Chris Weidman just hit this roadblock, man. It's like, what do you think happened to him, Matt? After he got kneed, his face changed by Yoel. Remember Yoel kneed him, and then his face kind of changed.
I mean, before that, I think he was feeling himself a little bit too much trying to throw that wheel kick. That one wheel kick, he literally
Changed
spun his whole career around when he tried to do that. So it's weird because the guy is like, he's self-deprecating too a lot. A while back, we were interviewing Stephen Thompson a few years back, and he was sitting right next to Wonderboy the entire time. And like middle of the interview, Wonderboy just kind of turned the camera and it was like, "Hey, look who I'm sitting next to." And then you're like, "Oh shit, like it's Chris Weidman." And he was like, "Hey, what's up, people? If anybody still cares that I'm here," like stuff like that. I'm like, "Okay, all right, Chris. Like, you're still one of the best in the world, man. Like, don't beat yourself up too much, But he's in a weird spot, I think, because he doesn't look like he's like as good as the top of the division right now. I think we all know how a Chris Weidman versus Izzy fight would go if that took place.
That'd be a tough watch, I think.
Yeah, but I still think obviously he's still top 15 materials, top 10. But I think he's got a ceiling on him right now.
Yeah, definitely got a ceiling, and it seems like he has moved his family to South Carolina with the Wonder Boy crew, and they're out there training. Maybe he goes back and forth because New York is in a terrible situation. Where do you stay at, Matt?
I am in Dallas, Texas, DFW area. Yep.
Right. You're in the middle of the free country right there, right?
Jesus Christ. Yeah, no, actually, I mean, believe it or not, with Dallas area, it's actually more left leaning than most of the rest of Texas. So it's people are for the most part following the guidelines and everything like that. So yeah, it's all right, I guess, but it's still very much Texas from a lot of people. So
yeah, with going back to that matchup with Weidman and Hall, Hall seemed like he's found a good spot at Fortis MMA and found a coach that he's really clicking with, and And Hall's a unique character too. You know, his career has been a weird one because he came in with all this hype and like he's the next Anderson Silva. And how many times we've heard the next Anderson Silva and they just became nothing, right? Multiple times. You know, remember Philip Rover? Was it Felipe Rover, the Filipino guy?
Novair.
Yeah. Now he's a nurse in New York City, right? So it's like went from being the next, you know, Anderson Silva to becoming a nurse in New York City. You know what I mean? Like it's like a curse, you know, whenever they say that about somebody. But Hall, he has rebuilt himself back up, and now he's facing a guy that I believe knocked him out in King of the Cage, or one of those promotions on the East Coast back in the day. And I think he's gonna get revenge on what is it, Weidman. What do you think about the matchup?
Yeah, Weidman's a guy you can't really confidently pick at this stage. Maybe that'll change. You know, if he rattles some wins off, maybe the confidence in him will be renewed. But for the moment, I mean, you just don't feel good picking Chris Weidman in any fight, just because, you know, there's, you know, his takedowns have been failing him a little bit. He's looked kind of slow on the feet. He's been knocked out. But, you know, he did beat Hall the first time they met. And, you know, on paper, it does still kind of look like he has the right tools to beat Hall. You know, he's a good pressure fighter. He's got the good takedowns. Hall's, what's the phrase everyone always uses? A good hammer, bad nail. I would say Hall kind of fits that description. You know, he's great when he's winning, but the second a fight doesn't go his way, you know, he starts to kind of fizzle a little bit. And I can kind of envision a fight where Weidman maybe completes some takedowns and sort of starts to bloody him up, and then, you know, all of Hall's spinning stuff, I'll say, flies out the window. So that's an interesting fight, I think. And I think it's it's good matchmaking for both guys at this stage of their career.
All right, we got Asian Persuasion. He's saying that Luke Rockhold is recovering from shoulder surgery, but plans to fight again in the summer. Yeah. Do you want Matt? Do you want Luke Rockhold to come back? And if he does, he's gonna come back anyway. So who does he fight?
Chris Weidman.
yeah, I say too. Yeah, if Chris Weidman loses,
he said he wanted to fight Till and Vettori. Those are the two guys he named for his comeback. God. So he's shooting for the stars.
All right, Luke. All right. Yeah, I think it'd be a good fight. I mean, if it depends on what he looks like when he comes back, you know, because if he looks like the guy that beat Chris Weidman the first time, cool. But what about the guy that showed up the few fights after that? Didn't look very interested, you know, like, I don't know.
Hey, look, Eddie the Blasian says, dude is Rockhold's nurse. I believe he's referred to Nover, you know, the guy that was the next Anderson Silva. So, you know, hey, actually, JD Smith, he brings up a good question right here. I'll throw it to you, Matt, first. How great would the middleweight division be if Mousasi came back into the UFC? Do you think it would make it better?
I mean, a little bit. I don't think it would be like a major shift. I think the top five of that division is pretty stacked. But he'd be a nice addition for sure. You know, it'd be just one of those things. Like I never wanted to see him leave in the first place, just to see what would happen. But you know, promotions are what they are in MMA. So never going to see a cross promotional bout when it comes to the UFC. So.
Yeah, we're not going to see that ever. Tom, do you think if Mousasi was here, this is all hypothetical, right? Mousasi came back to the UFC, would he be able to get through that gauntlet in the middleweight division and reach the champion? Let's say Izzy's the champion.
I don't think so. I mean, he's good. He's great even, but in the middleweight division, the top five right now is just so brutal. I mean, it's lethal for anybody to go through that. It's going to take a really special fighter. I think if he came back to the UFC, it would make the top 15 precisely one good fighter better than it is now. You know, I don't think it would change all that much in the grand scheme. He'd probably beat a few top 10 guys and lose to a few others.
Damn, man. Is
that too harsh? Are you a Mousasi guy?
No, I like Mousasi. I think career-wise and financially, he made the right decision to go over to Bellator and just rule that, you know, that promotion, rule the division over there, and he's gonna have fights, but they're not going to be the biggest fights, but they're going to be fights that he could make money and he could grow his popularity somewhat. And I think if he really wanted to, he could eventually come back to the UFC, you know, when his contract's up. Maybe he will move to like PFL like Roy McDonald did for some reason. And Roy McDonald now he's out there trashing Bellator after he's left Bellator. Did you guys see that interview that JDS did with Ariel Helwani today?
No, I didn't see it.
No, I missed that.
No, I just saw the headline. So, I just read the headline. So the headline says that, maybe it's wrong. I didn't watch the interview. That's why I asked you if you did. But the headline said that JDS was saying that it's, the UFC is a dictatorship. And I thought, man, you made so much money with the UFC. You know what I mean? Like, do you need to come out there after you got cut? You've been with them for like over 10 years. You've been the champion. I don't know, man. Is it a good look for JDS to kind of go out there and trash the UFC right now? You can wait a little bit, right? You can wait a little bit, JDS. Matt, what do you think?
I like the controversy, to be honest with you, especially when it's something like that. Because just going by the headline, I kind of agree. I will watch the whole interview to see what he says. But yeah, it seems like they were trying to force him into a fight, and he was just like, "I'm not ready," or "I don't like that matchup," or one of the two. And they were like, "All right, here's the door," which is kind of messed up. But I mean, I got to watch the whole thing to really see.
Exactly. Like I just read the headline, you know what I mean? Like I didn't have enough time to watch the interview yet, but yeah, he was saying something about if you read the contract carefully, there's some things that, that most people would not sign. If they read it carefully, they would not sign the contract. But you signed the contract, dude. Like many times you signed the contract. So it's, we'll have to I would have to watch the whole thing and maybe a topic for next week. I wanted to get into this right here for Tom, man. It's like Alan Bones Joe saying, could Whittaker be a contender at 205 if he ever makes the move up? He goes from welterweight to middleweight and now 205. You think that his body could take that?
That's a good question. On the surface, I feel like he has the skills to beat a lot of guys at 205. I mean, he's just such a good fighter. He's good at everything. I think he's like probably technically better than almost everybody at 205 right now, to be honest. But like you said, he was a former welterweight, came up to middleweight, and he's really filled out. But I kind of feel like he's maybe like maxed out his frame. It's hard to, he's already so ripped. I mean, if he starts packing on more muscle, it might be at the expense of speed and cardio and things like that. So I think middleweight's the perfect division for him. It's just kind of a shame he went there. It took him so long to get there. It would have been great to just see him jump right into the middleweight division rather than that weird stint he had at welterweight, beating, who did he beat? He beat that guy Colton Smith and then lost to Wonder Boy. And he kind of had a weird welterweight career. But middleweight, I mean, clearly it worked for him. He became the champ and still clearly the number 2 guy. He'd be great at 205, I think, but middleweight's the place for him.
Yeah, I think middleweight is probably his limit in putting on size. You know what I mean? He had that stomach thing too, where something was wrong, really wrong, right? Alan Bones Jones, another comment. He says, Dana said Whittaker didn't want the Izzy fight before Izzy fought Hyon, even though Whittaker never said that he just had a kid during the winter, so he didn't want a quick comeback. And, I believe that the UFC probably offered it to him, but, Whittaker, he needs to take the fight. It's a title fight, man. You need time to prepare. It's a rematch. It's not like, it's not like you're like a bottom guy, in the division and you're just taking a fight. You're taking the biggest fight of your career because you got knocked out by the guy, lost your title to the guy, and you're going to come back and do the rematch on short notice against probably the best guy maybe in the UFC right now. You know what I mean? Except for Hyon, except for Hyon. So, man, what do you think of this? Do you think you think the UFC is pushing these guys a little too much, man? We've heard it many times, where like guys will just offer these fights, or is it just rumors? A lot of it's based off rumors.
No, I think it's 100% true. We hear it far too often. The UFC is trying to keep up this ridiculous schedule, so they're absolutely trying to force guys into taking fights that aren't necessarily the best for their career or on the timeline that they're needing. They need to fill these cards up, so I'm sure they're blowing up everybody's phone trying to get them into the octagon. So, yeah, whenever a fighter says that, I believe them every single time.
No,
especially a guy like Whittaker.
Yeah,
the nicest guy. Yeah,
100%.
Roy, what has Till done to be a title contender? It says I understand the popularity of the memes, but he's only impressive. Yeah, I agree with you, Roy. Like, I agree with you. Like, he hasn't done anything even if he beats Vettori, I don't think he's done enough to get a title shot. But we don't control the title shots. You know what I mean? Like, right now, who controls the title shots? Izzy controls the title shots right now. I think that's what's happening. So, You know, like you gotta. I think it's like Izzy's done this much for the UFC, so now the UFC needs to pay him back somehow, and I guess that's the way they're gonna pay him back. And they feel like this is a fight that's a challenge, and it's an interesting fight because still, what is it? Till won't go to the ground with Izzy. He's gonna stand there and trade with him, and that's what Izzy wants. Izzy wants a guy to go head first, and really go head first. You know what I mean? And bang with him on the feet. So. That's why the UFC wants it, because it's exciting. The guys are exciting. They'll talk trash and everything else. Now, before we get back into the comments, I wanted to get into this UFC Academy. Right, they're having the combine right now, and I feel like a lot of people, this is the first they've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when I posted that picture of Lee Kai-Wen at the combine at the UFC Academy at the UFC PI in Shanghai, they were like, "Oh, this is going on." I never even heard of this, but actually this has been going on for a few years now. You know what I mean? Like, who is it? Man, who's the bantamweight that, Alatang, he was the first guy from the UFC Academy to get signed by the UFC. And I feel like there's a misconception right now with like people in the UFC Academy. These guys are fighting for a spot to train and to learn from the staff and the coaches at the UFC PI. They're not signed by the UFC. So people don't get it confused. They're not signed by the UFC. What do you know about the UFC Academy, Tom? Because you know some bits and pieces just like me, but we don't know the whole truth.
Not much, honestly. I mean, like you said, this is new information for a lot of people. I think just to diverge from one thing you said, I think probably Lee Kai-Wen has a contract already or is getting a contract soon. I don't think he's competing for a space at the academy or anything like that. I mean, I feel like his accolades and his highlight reel are good enough that they would just scoop him up, and he's probably just stuck in China right now, and that's where he's doing his training. But yeah, this is exciting. You know, they talked about doing the Asian Contender Series for a while, and obviously the pandemic kind of threw a wrench in those plans. So it seems like, you know, they've kind of formed an alternate strategy to develop, you know, talent in China and larger Asia. And I mean, it's awesome. There's so many good fighters over there. It's awesome to see that they now have like a clearer avenue to the UFC.
Yeah, and Lee Kai-Wen, recently he posted some stuff about one championship and them not letting him out of his contract, and what did you think? You know, I thought that's probably true. You know what I mean? I don't think he's lying about it, but it seems like somehow he's gotten out of his contract or his contract has expired. Do you know anything about that?
Not a ton. I know there was obviously some kind of issue with one championship, and, you know, in their defense, Lee Kai-Wen's an amazing prospect, super exciting fighter. You know, he's got the look. I can understand why they would want to keep him around. I think he just kind of realized that he's a real commodity and realized that the UFC would probably want him, and then probably wanted out of his one championship contract, and it got messy. But the key detail, obviously, is that he signed with Paradigm, and that was not long after Adiatar started working with Legend FC out of Hong Kong or Macau. So, like, you know, there's the kind of China area connection, and Paradigm kind of doing things in that neck of the woods, and they picked him up. And I think that was probably the kind of breaking point in terms of his disputes with one. Once he had like a real big time manager on his side, I think it was pretty easy for him to get out of that contract and move to the UFC.
Matt, you know, this UFC Academy, is this the first you've heard about it, or have you heard any bits and pieces in the past?
I've only heard that it exists. Like, I've heard nothing about anything going on over there. Like, so it's always been kind of like a mystery to me, at least. It's one of those things that I always kind of think about randomly. I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going on with that. And then, like, I'll look around and I don't see anybody really talking about it. So I'm just like, all right, I guess they're doing something over there.
It's like a secret lab or something,
yeah,
right?
It's
like
kind of wild.
And you know what I thought about this too is, like, it's been going on and they're producing fighters, and I was thinking, like, why are they only doing it in China, Matt? Like, why aren't they doing it in the US? You know, you got a gang of fighters, you know what I mean? Instead of doing that stupid ass Ultimate Fighter show, they should just give these scholarships to the guys and have them develop in the UFC PEI. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure there's a long line of guys that would step in, try out in the combine. You could film it all. You can make it into a documentary, and it'll be much more interesting than Ultimate Fighter. What do you think about that idea?
I agree. I cannot stand the Ultimate Fighter. I think it's ran its course. So I'm like, the fact that they wanted to do, you know, another one here with with Usman and Masvidal. I was like, oh my God, please don't. But yeah, I like that idea. You know, like kind of just expand the Contender Series a little bit in that way. I think that would be perfect. You know, I like Contender Series a lot more than Tough, but give people a little bit more insight to who some of these people are before we just tune in on a Tuesday and see these guys go at it. I think that would be perfect.
Yeah, and also you could expand it internationally because, you know, Dana White was talking about that they're going to try to open a PI in India and they're going to try to open another PI in the Middle East. And I feel like I believe him opening a PI in the Middle East, like in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, because they have the funding, you know what I mean? Because in China, I believe there's somebody funding that PI, not the UFC. The UFC's probably, what do you call it? Like loaning out the name, you know what I mean, and everything else, you know what I mean, and kind of like having a deal with them to sign some of the guys.
Yeah.
What is it called?
Well, I mean, there's kind of, if they're doing that, they're kind of selling the UFC brand in the same way that they are with the UFC gyms. You know,
Exactly.
Michael Bisping's got one, BJ Penn's got one in Hawaii. You know, like I don't know if that's what they're doing, but I mean, the UFC brand is what sells, right? So
exactly. So I could see them opening that up, and maybe in Russia too. They've talked interest about a PI in Russia, and if they do open these spots up, my idea would be to have scholarship programs in all the PIs, and then have the guys come, have the girls come, have the guys come and fight each other, and it'll be like a worldwide contender series, and it kind of adds on to what Matt was saying. That would be badass, right? And they document it, like, so you can watch it like a TV show. You watch them train and come up, and then Saturday or Friday or Tuesday, wherever, right? I guess it's Tuesday. You could watch these guys fight, man. I think more people will get involved. You know, it'd be more interesting, right, Matt?
That would be like a badass version of Mortal Kombat, you know?
Yeah, it'd be like Olympics.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I love that idea. Now, let's pitch it to Dana. Let's do it.
Yeah, you listening to us.
He doesn't usually listen to journalists, does he?
No, hell no. I mean, he does when he wants to create a hit piece, but that's another story.
We might have to go tell the Schmo. You know, it seems like the Schmo has a good direct line to Dana White. Have the Schmo pitch it to him in his little exclusive interviews, right? And slide that in there, maybe. I don't know the Schmo, so maybe someone knows.
Guy. Yeah, I know him. I met him once. He's a good dude for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Hard worker too, man.
Yeah, so the PI, you know, there's some names that are coming out. Like recently, what is it? Long. That's how you say his name, because I interviewed him not too long ago and I didn't know how to pronounce it, but it's one of the guys that was translating for me. Long and like Na Liang, they're all gonna debut at UFC 261 on the undercard for with Wei Li and Rose Namajunas and Jorge Masvidal. They're going over there. And then I believe they're, like you said, Lee Kai Wen. We don't know. He might be fighting on that card too. It's still, like what's 5 weeks away or something like that. And then there's Ramona Pascal. She's a graduate from the UFC Academy. The first year that they did it, she's in Vegas training at the PI and at Syndicate. She could possibly get signed real soon. So the UFC is rolling now with the Chinese fighters and fighters that are graduating from the PI. And I like it, man. It shows a good step forward that they're trying to produce more talent out of China. And hopefully, like I said earlier, they do it everywhere else around the world too, you know what I mean? And give these guys the opportunity to have the meal plan. You know what they do at the academy? They have housing. They have the whole facility of the PI, the coaching staff, everything, 24 hours. Dude, it's like a dream. It's a dream. It's like better than even like football players coming up, like better than basketball players, you know what I mean? Like are you guys watching, do you guys watch Last Chance U on Netflix?
No, I don't. Sorry, man.
You guys don't watch it?
I do not watch it. No.
Okay, so if you watch that shows you guys, in that show, it's so interesting because it's like documenting these guys that they're super talented in like football or basketball, but they mess up, you know what I mean? And they get in trouble or their grades are not good enough, so they have to go to community college. And so they're like filming a documentary in community college, and it shows you their development and stuff like that. It could be like that, you know what I mean? Like for this academy. But yeah, from what I know, like from talking to Ramona when she first tried out the first year and she graduated and made the team and graduated and trained there, they cover pretty much everything, man. And that's what fighters need right now. You always see fighters, even if they're signed to the UFC, they're working a a full-time job. You know, that's one of the things that really irks me a little bit when I interview fighters, is that they don't get paid enough to where they can't train 100% of their time. They can't focus 100% of their life to fighting. And it's like, man, there's a big problem, Matt. Big problem with that.
Yeah, I hate it, man. Because you know, one of the guys who trains here at Fortis, Jeff Neal, used to love the fact like that, you know, he would have to go to a job. I think actually still does, you know, that he would go and, you know, be a server and because it would take his mind off of fighting and stuff. Mm-hmm. But there's a difference between needing to do it and like liking, yeah. You know, I mean, some guys do it because they need that distraction, but some I would say the majority of the guys that have that job need it because either they're not getting paid enough or they're not getting enough fights a year. And it's just all around bad when you're, you know, this company, this promotion that's the biggest in the world, doing all of these things globally, and you can't pay your roster enough money to where that can be their sole focus as improving as a fighter. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, it is frustrating.
Well
Tom,
said.
I wanted to get into you want to say? Go ahead.
No, I said well said. That was I totally agree with all that.
Yeah, but it seems like during the COVID era now that fighters, even if they do have jobs, they're getting laid off. You know, I've talked to a lot of fighters that, you know, they were training and fighting, or not training, fighting and working a job. And then some of them has been like a silver lining for them to get laid off so they can focus fully on their fighting career, you know, even though they're broke. And and some of them have gotten into the UFC because of that reason. You know, I mean, they stayed ready, stayed training 100% of the time. Let's get into this question. Tom, I'll get it to you first. What do you guys make of Khamzat still calling out Neil Magny when he should be worried on recovering 100% from COVID? Is that what's happening? I haven't noticed it lately.
Yeah, I haven't heard him make any callouts, but I think if I was in his position, I would be making callouts for sure. The example I would draw on is something that probably a lot of people don't remember, given the way Conor McGregor's career went. And there's so many highlights since then. But early in his UFC career, he had like an ACL or MCL tear or something. It was out for like a year and a half, and like, you know, he had the same kind of hype that Khamzat has now, right? He was this super hot prospect from overseas, you know, and won maybe one or two fights and then was sidelined for quite a while. And people might have forgotten about him had he not stayed so vocal, you know, during that hiatus. He made sure that he was fresh in people's minds, even when he wasn't fighting. So I think that's a good strategy for a guy like Khamzat who, you know, potentially may not fight again, potentially will, one way or the other. You know, he's you know, he's making sure that people remember who he is. I mean, we're not going to forget him that quickly, but he's keeping himself in the headlines, you know, and I think that's there's no harm in that.
Yeah, Matt, have you noticed anything with this?
I just looked at his Instagram and he posted a picture like from the weigh-ins, one of the fights where, you know, he was doing a stare down at weigh-ins, and he just kind of spliced it to just him and has Neil Magny with the emoji next to it. And I think that's actually in response, because if I recall, I believe Neil Magny mentioned him a little while back in an interview. So that maybe he's just now getting around to hearing that interview or something, but I don't know. It's definitely weird, man. If he's not ready to step in there, like, don't call out anybody. Don't poke the bears. Like, come on, get healthy, man. That's what we all want to see first.
Yeah, it's almost like bad karma, you know? Mm-hmm. It could be bad karma for him just trying to stay relevant. And he could be getting bad advice too, right? There's always people in people's like fighters' ears, right? Like there's teammates, coaches, whoever it is, they're in your ear. They're kind of influencing you a little bit, and it could be bad advice. We've seen that happen time and time again, right, Matt, with fighters throughout the years.
All the time.
And Matt, speaking of staying relevant, what's up with Khabib, man? Like Khabib, I thought he's retired. Now he's going out there taking pictures with Lorenzo, tagging Dana White, send me location. He's doing interviews like he doesn't want to fight anymore. It's like, what is he doing, Matt? Like, is he really teasing everybody? Is that what he's doing? And he's really gonna come back?
Man, when he first started saying like he was retired and then he was done, I was like, leave the guy alone, right? Just leave him alone, let him be retired. And if he wants to pop back up, cool. We'll all be happy if he pops back up. But then you listen to, you know, like his good friends that are like really close to him, like in Daniel Cormier, when he said recently, he was like, hey, if Khabib is he's taking interviews and taking sit downs with you, you sit down and you like interviews with him, like, because that means something. So maybe he is kind of playing us a little bit. Again, I just want them to make a decision. Please make a decision. I want to know what's going on with this title, because UFC missed an opportunity to crown a new champ already. So what's going on in the lightweight division? I would love to see Khabib still compete, but I mean, if he's truly done, then leave him alone. But yeah, he's throwing out a lot of mixed signals.
Tom, are we getting blue balled by Khabib right now? Is this in motion?
We might be. I mean, I would agree that, if he wants to retire, we need to let him retire. I've said this before, probably on this very show, that MMA and fight fans have a habit of holding fighters hostage, and we just won't let these guys retire. Sometimes, we're still talking about a GSP comeback. The guy's like 40 years old. Clearly isn't fighting again, and I just worry that Khabib may fall into that too. But he is kind of keeping the hope alive a little bit, isn't he? He's fanning the flames. I interviewed Kevin Lee recently, and he sort of suggested that, Khabib may retire for a few years and then kind of mount the GSP style comeback, 3 years later. I kind of see it happening that way if it does happen. But I think for the moment, I don't think he has any intention of fighting again. I mean, who would he fight? Nothing has changed. He had a meeting with Lorenzo, but, clearly money isn't the driving factor for him. He's not really interested in any particular opponents at this moment. What could one meeting with Lorenzo change? I don't think he's going to fight again anytime soon.
Fight Night's Pick says we need a GSP comeback. Tom with the Canadian flag. Fight Night's Pick's Canadian guys, man. They're supporting GSP to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I love GSPs. He's one of the guys that got me into this sport. He's my neighbor. But, he's done fighting. I think it's time to let him ride off into the sunset, or, into the frozen tundra, whatever,
Yeah, if since he's your neighbor, you should, when you run into him, tell him to do something with that hair, man. Like, come on, man.
Please.
You guys don't like the hair?
It just looks weird.
It looks weird. It does look weird, and it looks like he's trying to be like he's trying to audition for the Backstreet Boys or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's the vibes I get from him. But
it's an interesting look.
Yeah, and he just aligned himself with karate combat, right? So I guess that's a perfect match with him, because he has that karate background. What did you think about that news?
That's cool. I mean, what is he? He's like a mentor or something. I just saw the headline, so it's but it sounds like it's just kind of a figurehead role. He was on. He was on The Apprentice, One Championship Apprentice. Like, I think right now he's just. I mean, he's so done fighting. He's clearly not under any really restrictive contract with UFC right now. So he's just like taking money from anyone who's going to give it to him, just enjoying life. He's earned it. Respect to him,
Wasn't he recently in a movie? Wasn't like he playing some bad guy or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm so tired of fighters trying to be actors, to be honest. I want to see all fighters get paid as much as possible, whether it's in fighting or, other pursuits. But like, the track record of fighters making the jump to acting is not particularly good. In fact, it's bad. A lot of them just flat out suck at acting, and then some of them go the Gina Carano route and make complete fools of themselves. No, I don't care about his acting career personally.
A serious question, Matt. If a fighter, if you could pick any fighter and just their personality and their way of manipulating the media and just like getting people riled up, who would be the best actor?
Hands down, Israel Adesanya. Hands down. Number one draft pick.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll back that pick. That's a good pick.
Yeah.
It's like, what kind of movie would you see Israel in? Do you see him in like a karate, like martial arts film, or do you see him like as like some like secret agent, like a villain in a Bond movie? I could see that, right? Like Bond goes to, like, I don't know, let's say Africa. I'm not trying to just say, let's say he goes to Africa, right? And Izzy's waiting there with his, with his skills and his crew and his army, right? You can see him like the leader, right?
Yeah, he could be that. If they want to do like a Rush Hour 4 or 5, he could fill in one of those roles. I think he could do a lot of different things.
What about like a gritty character piece or a rom-com or something? You think he could flex on us and really kind of like diversify?
Yeah, he could. He
Who would be
could.
the leading lady in that? You
Oh
know,
man,
there's
I'm sure
there's
they'd be
some
lining
fine
up.
ladies out there. You
Yeah.
know, I think Hollywood would be nice. Hollywood would be nice for Izzy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be
Yeah,
very, very
but
good
look
for
at
him.
that. He's thinking about some leading ladies right now.
I'm trying to think. You know, trying to think. You know, he doesn't have any connections with UFC fighters. You know, it wouldn't be like a Colby and Polyana Viana thing. So it'd be something surprising, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Rush Hour 4 would be interesting because Jackie Chan is like 90 years old right now. So
He'd
like,
be passing the torch to like the newer generation. You know,
who would be the Jackie Chan role in Rush Hour 5? Like Ken Jeong from Hangover. I think that would be a sick combination. I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
I
then
think that would
he'd
just
be the comedic relief instead of the
Yeah.
the action star in that one. Yeah.
Ooh, you know what? If you want to keep it with the UFC roster, what was it? What was the girl's name? The little girl's name, Soo Young, right? Was that the little girl's name in the movie? I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
I think so. Yeah. Okay. So she's all grown up now, and it's Zhang Wali. So there you go. Boom.
Okay,
I like
there you
it.
go. Yeah, you're right, man.
Yeah.
That hey, I think that they can make that. You know, get some Chinese, backing because nowadays Hollywood, like half of it is Chinese backing. If you notice, like before every movie, it's like some Chinese company, and then the other company comes in, right? So we'll see what happens. Oh, hey, someone Alan Bones Jones was saying like he could be in like Creed 3. I think that's a baby step. You know what I mean, into Hollywood. I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Remember when they were talking about having Sage Northcutt play Ivan Drago's son in the
Yes.
Oh, that was a terrible idea. You think
No,
that guy
but
could play a villain?
he did film the Street Fighter movie though. I remember talking to him about it. It
Sage
just
did?
hasn't been. Yeah, Sage did.
Huh.
He filmed the Street Fighter movie. It just hasn't been released yet.
Hmm.
And because that's why he was living in LA during the pandemic, because he was out there doing some Hollywood stuff. So
Oh,
maybe that'll drop and we won't even notice it dropped, and then it'll just fade away. And Sage is, he's
As long
not
as
even
it's
really
not like
promoting it. He's embarrassed to buy
Never
it. I
Back
don't know.
Down 4, or at least it's something cool.
Yeah, I think Sage would be perfect for that. But anyways, yeah, like now Matt was talking about Colby Covington, right? And let's just lead into that. Colby Covington and Polyana Viana. When you look at that situation, like he does the interview, and let me just read the quotes. Like it says, I think he was referring to like they offered him the Leon Edwards fight and he didn't take the fight. So there's the context, right? And he said why he didn't take the fight. He said there wasn't much talks. I was balls deep in Polyana Viana, so get me off the couch in 3 weeks notice to fight some Leon Scott guy. It was going to be a price tag. I wanted a little bit more than was in my contract. I just wasn't gonna show up for a normal paycheck to fight that guy. The way I fight guys, I redline it every time I fight. Now, I'm gonna start with you, Matt, just dissecting this quote of what he's inferring to us and what we know about Colby. What is your thoughts, man?
I mean, there's a couple of different angles you can go, right? You can go like the sexist route, or you can just go like with the competitive route. Him saying he's not taking fights, which is interesting on its own, because this is a guy that despite his polarizing character, I'll say it like that, he's still a very good fighter, and a lot of people want to see him fight top names in the division, right? So him saying that he's not taking a fight is kind of disheartening. We want to see the best fight against the best. His reasons why are a whole nother issue, because it's like, does the UFC ever intend to impose their code of conduct on their fighters? Does that document still exist? Do they still even make them sign these things? Because where's the accountability? I mean, at the end of the day, that's still one of his coworkers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Quote unquote coworkers. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
expanding on that, I'm a little out of date. Since I vacated the position at BJ Penn, I'm not quite as in tune with the headlines as I once was. So I may have missed something. But last I saw, she clarified that like they're not an item, and she has a boyfriend, right? And Colby has come out and said they weren't dating, but he suggested they were doing something else. And it's just, it's just making him come across terribly. I mean, not that that's anything new. The guy never looks particularly good, but But yeah, I mean, way out of line in my opinion. And as Matt said, there's this code of conduct that we keep hearing about, but it's never seems to be honored. I mean, they got to drop the hammer on somebody soon and discipline these guys.
Yeah, with Colby, like whenever he's talking trash, and normally he's going at one of the guys in the division, right? Like he's attacking them. And most of the time I feel like, okay, that's okay. You do your thing. He toes the line. He's tiptoeing on the line a lot. You know what I mean? Maybe he does cross the line sometimes, and people and the UFC never does anything about it. So it almost seems like Colby is trying to see how far he can go now before they reprimand him. It almost seems like that.
I think he's realized he can go about as far as he wants, and nothing's going to happen. Like clearly the UFC just doesn't care what people say. I mean, maybe there's a line somewhere. We don't ever want anyone to touch that line, obviously, because it would be absolutely nasty. But I mean, you can get away with saying pretty much anything. That much is clear now. Unless you're talking trash about Uncle Dana, and then then you're in trouble.
Because Matt, like you said, it's a coworker, right? So if you went to work and you said something like that, on the internet about your coworker, you'd probably be fired.
100%, 100%, true or not, like true or not. Yeah. Like you can't say that, especially about somebody that's, going to be, presumably sharing a card with you at some point in the near future. And to Toph's point, she said, I got a boyfriend. Like we're just friends. Like imagine the boyfriend reading these statements or hearing these statements, watching that interview. Like
it's just crazy, man.
It's all bad. It's all bad.
It's all bad.
This to me is just further evidence that MMA fighters are just, as a general rule, bad at trash talk, bad at promoting themselves. Like, I don't know what his intention is here. Like, he doesn't look cool. He looks kind of creepy, if anything. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't want to go in on it too hard, but it's just like half the time when these fighters open their mouths online with the intention of, improving their brand or something, I feel like it has the, complete opposite effect. I don't know. Somebody they need like media training or something, because it's just crazy.
Whenever the people start to debate this, right, about Colby and has he gone too far, they always bring up Chael Sonnen. You know what I mean? Like Chael Sonnen was the so-called gold standard of trash talk, right? And did Chael ever go too far? Do you, Matt, remember any examples of him going like actually like this far, where he's talking about something sexual about a coworker, basically?
With Chael?
Yeah.
I think the furthest he went was talking about Anderson's wife.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that was the furthest he ever went, and he got a lot of pushback from that. But outside of that, I don't recall anything along those same lines. I could be mistaken though.
There was a time he said that one of the Nogueira brothers tried to feed a carrot to a bus or something in Brazil, kind of just that, which was just ridiculous. But the only difference between Chael and Colby, in my opinion, and this is not, excusing either one of them for anything, is that Chael's trash talk always kind of had like a theatrical feel to it almost. You could tell it was a little bit scripted, and it was like a very clear shtick that he'd obviously prepared. Whereas Colby, he's just kind of like, it's stream of consciousness sometimes. And you can tell because he's, he mixes his metaphors. Half the time the things he's saying barely make sense. He's just like blabbing things, trying to be controversial in the moment, and it's they're two totally different things in my opinion. Chael probably crossed some lines too, but I think he was a little more calculated and he knew what he was doing, whereas Colby's just balls to the wall. Let's just make people mad.
Yeah, Chael, you knew he was calculated because he would say the same thing like 20 times, right? Like he did say the same thing like 20 times. It was like lyrics, like he remembered, and he's just saying it over and over again. And I think Chael, I enjoyed it most of what he did. Certain things it was like, he's towing the line. Colby is like the devil side of Chael, right? It's just the bad parts, and that's coming out now more than ever. And I don't like this. I mean, I like you talking trash to the other guys that you're going to fight, because that guy you're going to fight can beat your ass for saying these things, right? But you're talking about a female in the company, right? It's just wrong. It's like sexual harassment. Is this sexual harassment? Yeah, it is, right? Like, I don't know. I don't work in a company, so I don't know
I
like
mean,
the
that shit
conduct.
wouldn't fly at a Dairy Queen or
Yeah,
any
exactly.
corporate office. Stuff. I don't know why it flies here.
Exactly. It's just it's weird. And what
Mhm.
is it? Justin Harris, he says he fumbled the friends with benefits bag. Colby weak for that one. Ghost 99100. Colby has no charisma or swag. That's the problem. JD Smith says Colby's intentions is exactly you guys doing now. Got people talking about him. Well, we're talking about everybody. It's not just about Colby, right?
Yeah.
So if Colby
He
did
is kind
something
of
else, it would be
kind of
talking
right.
about him anyway, right? So
Yeah.
what is it? Luke Lopez, sup y'all? I think Usman should be a 4-1 over Masvidal. We'll get into that in a little bit. Chell took shots at Tito's baby mama Jenna James. Oh, I remember that.
That was a bad one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I think that was in Bellator, right? When they were about to fight each other. What else we got over here? Yeah, man, it's just I don't know. I a lot of people say, I've watched some shows about people talking about this issue, and a lot of people are just saying that it's entertainment and they like that he's playing this villain. But man, there's playing the villain, and then there's this.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm like Polyana Viana's father or brother, like, because I'm a man, I'm not gonna be her sister, right? So like there's like I would have big issues with this, right? If I I'm just gonna be true with you. If I saw Colby like in the street, that's I don't know what I would do. You know what I mean? Like if this is my sister you're talking about, right?
100%. Like there's things pro wrestling won't touch these days when it comes to the heel rolls, right? There's a line in pro wrestling now, and they don't cross it. I mean, to cross it in this real world, element where there are some, obviously some elements of, I guess, pro wrestling style, like promotion to it. And obviously that's what Colby's doing, but he's way over the lines in a lot of different scenarios here. I think if, more people should approach the Fabricio Verdum angle and just smack him upside the head with a boomerang when they see him in the street, because it's just like, dude, like you're going way too far with this stuff. And yeah, I think behind the scenes, like when the cameras are off, he's not really that same guy. But at the end of the day, like we're fighting for real here. Like, why are you, I guess, so comfortable with towing the racism line and towing like the sexual harassment line? Like, you can just talk trash without going that route.
Yeah, it's not very creative either, is it? I mean, like there are other ways to be a heel, get creative, make yourself a real interesting, compelling character that people hate for cool reasons, not just because you're a hateable guy, And it's crazy listening to Colby's old interviews too, before he really leaned into this shtick. I remember, way back in the day, we would have Jorge Masvidal on BJ Penn Radio, and this was before Colby was anywhere near as famous as he is now. He was barely a prospect then, and Jorge convinced us to have Colby on the show. And like at this point, Colby didn't get any press, and he was totally different guy, just completely different guy, just kind of, a young grinder trying to make a name for himself in a really tough sport. And then just, it was right around the Damian Maia fight, I guess, where he just flipped that switch. And I mean, yeah, it's just crazy.
100%. 100%. I interviewed him before the Max Griffin fight, UFC 202.
Right.
Just a calm, like he was calm, like super confident in himself. Like he's like, I'm going to be one of the best in this division one day. And he's just, I just got to keep going out there and showing it. And there was no hint of this over the top persona that we see now. It's wild.
Yeah. When you look at JD's comment, he also said Colby's going to talk his way out of the UFC promotion. And there's some side of me that could possibly happen, but it's not going to be due to his talking. It's going to be due to like look what he said. He turned down a fight. There's an unwritten rule in the UFC. You can't turn down 2 fights in a row. We seen Yair Rodriguez do that. And what happened to him? He got cut and then he got re-signed. But for you could almost you could only become such a liability where the UFC is just like, all right, man, like we don't need this. You're turning down fights all the time. You don't want to fight the guys that we give you. And right now, the fights that he wants, which is Usman and Masvidal, he can't get those fights. So he's going to have to wait way longer than he expected. And then eventually he's going to have to fight, let's say, Wonder Boy. So let's get into like, what are the options for Colby Covington. Matt, what is the best option you think for him is right now?
It's in terms of taking a fight next.
Yeah.
Man, I would think he's got a couple of good options. You know, I was hoping that Wonder Boy would get the title fight, but since they're not, obviously for whatever reason, I think that's a good matchup for him. They should go that route. I love the clash of styles there, and I just want to see how they both deal with that. You know, that's the most interesting fight for me.
Yeah, Wonder Boy's calling out Colby, but not really calling him out. You know, he's calling him up. You know how Wonder Boy works. You know, I mean, he's saying it in the nicest way possible. Tom, you think Wonder Boy? Do you agree with Matt? Wonder Boy's the fight to make?
Yeah, I would say right now that's an amazing idea. I mean, that's really the best option available. I think if, you know, in a perfect world, things would have shaken out just a tiny bit differently. Leon would have won that fight the other weekend. He may have gotten the fight with Usman, and then we could do Jorge versus Colby. You know, that would obviously be a big grudge match that would interest a lot of people. But, you know, just the way the cards fell, I think, yeah, the Wonder Boy fight for Colby is definitely the best option. And like you said, an awesome style match, you know, there's so many different ways that fight could go. It would be a lot of fun.
Then what about Gilbert Burns? You guys don't see like Gilbert Burns? He's coming off the title loss. You know, Colby's coming off a win, right? Didn't he beat somebody after?
Woodley,
He beat Woodley, right? So both those guys have beat Woodley. They both fought Usman and lost. Both got knocked out by Usman, man. I love Usman, man. I don't know why people can't get on board with Usman, man. Like, this guy is so good. Like, he's almost so good to where like people just dismiss him and say we like Jorge because he can do all the flashy stuff and he can talk and be this character. But man, Usman is just the specimen. I think that should be his name. Matt, what do you think of Usman and what he's done and his resume, man? Incredible, right?
Yeah, man. Not too long ago, we did like, you know, a GOAT video, greatest all time conversation. And I mentioned Usman, like he's in the conversation now. And, you know, when I said it, you know, some people were like, oh, really? Like, yeah, the guy, he's definitely building that resume to be in that conversation. He's cleaned out the division for the most part. And it's all about how he continues to build upon it from here. The skill set's there. He's adding that jab to his game now, just like GSP had. So he's becoming a problem everywhere. Like, you used to get away with stuff on the feet. Like, you're not getting away with stuff on the feet anymore.
Yeah, he crushed Gilbert Burns. I love Gilbert Burns, but he crushed Gilbert Burns with a jab. Yeah. You know, it just shows you like the level of intelligence and, man, his fighter. It's like he's a perfect fighter, man. He has everything now, especially with his striking developing to where it is now, and it's getting better and better. And in this upcoming fight, Tom, I'm gonna say to you that Masvidal goes in there and he doesn't use any wrestling and he's gonna knock out Jorge Masvidal. I think that's why he wants that fight, because he has supreme confidence in his striking. Do you see that? You know, that's why he called for the fight, the rematch.
Yeah, I think he probably wants a more decisive outcome and just kind of erase all the, you know, the questions that stemmed from that first fight, you know, obviously with the short notice circumstances and everything. But I mean, it's pretty evident at this point that he's a better fighter than Jorge. I don't know if it's a good idea to force a stand-up fight with Jorge, because I mean, he can crack, you know, he could catch him. He's a good fighter. I'm not suggesting that Jorge is not a good fighter, but you know, if Usman really wants to win, he wants to retain his title, he should just do what he did the first time. You know, it worked very well. But yeah, I mean, Usman is, I think, a generational talent. He's proving that every fight. I think all the GSP comparisons are warranted. He's well-rounded. He's incredibly smart. Matt, like you said, the jab made an appearance in the last fight. That reminded me a lot of when GSP fought Koscheck. Obviously, you know, you fight a grappler with big power. You know, it doesn't look like on the surface you have all that many options. You know, you don't want to grapple with them or stand with them. But then for both of these welterweight champions, just the jab was the answer. Just light them up with the jab. So, I mean, he's growing. He's already amazing. I mean, I think the sky's the limit for him, and I don't see really anything different happening in this rematch with Jorge.
Yeah, I like to see Usman just continue beating everybody up in the welterweight division. Don't even talk about going into 185, because he already said he's not going to fight Izzy. So stay in welterweight, just everybody that's coming up, just beat them, make money. Because, you know, he's always said, I want to make money. I want to create generational wealth for my family. And I love that idea, man. And the only way to do it is to be champion and continue winning. So whoever they bring to you, keep beating them. And he has a list of guys that he could fight again, and new crop of guys coming up. You got Khamzat, I'm waiting for that day to come. You know what I mean? I know Khamzat still has a lot to prove, but I feel like stylistically that's a good matchup. They're kind of similar in many ways. Yeah, and when Colby won the Woodley fight and Usman was working the desk, and then they put them side by side, and Colby was like, "I'm gonna kill you," and then I love Usman because I watch it sometimes because it makes me laugh because all Usman was doing is like, "I broke your jaw." Like he's just spitting facts, dude. I don't understand why people don't like that. Like he's spitting facts and he's talking trash at the same time. Like you broke his jaw. Like that's a fact. Like whatever Colby's saying it's irrelevant in that screaming match. It's Colby's the one who's screaming and Usman's really calm, just like, I broke your jaw. Like I knocked you out. That's the worst thing you could do to a human being, right? Like if you see someone in the street and you knock them out and broke their jaw, like they can't say anything to you, right, Matt?
No, I can't say anything. And then to take it a step further from that, go back to the Anatomy of the Fighter footage where they're both right there behind the scenes, and Kamaro's like,
I forgot about that.
Standing right next to him. He's like, "You got nothing to say now? Got nothing to say? Just a Twitter thug, all that stuff." Like that was incredible. Colby's just all of a sudden he's got emergency texts he has to respond to, and can't he has to ignore everything in his vicinity. So yeah, man, Usman is a beast, and I don't understand people that don't like him. I really don't.
Yeah, it's the people that it's the people that like Brendan Schaub and are entertained by Brendan Schaub are the same people that are entertained by Colby's antics. You know what I mean? I'm entertained by Colby. I like his antics sometimes, but sometimes he goes too far. And when he does go too far, those people that are fans of Brendan Schaub come out and defend him for what he's saying, right? Like it's all right. It's trash talk, blah, 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 whatever. So I kind of like just push that to the side. Now, there's a good question from Chris, who does the podcast, who does the preview shows on this channel. He's like, regarding welterweight, where is Maia? That's a good question, right? I think he's ranked like number 9 or something like that. Where is Maia? Is he retired? Been gone for more than a year. Have you even noticed anything from Maia?
Yeah, I as far as the only thing I've noticed is that he's just holding out on top 10 ranking. Like I don't know where he's at. Has anybody seen him? Anybody heard anything? I don't know.
Yeah, somebody check on Damien. Where's this guy at? Last I heard, he was talking about maybe fighting Diego Sanchez, like a retirement fight. I think that was kind of briefly discussed, and obviously there was talk of the Khamzat fight before or after his last fight. I can't remember, but he was kind of like talked about as the next guy for Khamzat, and that obviously didn't end up happening. But I think maybe he's just kind of sitting on the sidelines and isn't feeling any urgency to jump back in there, and is just kind of waiting for the right opportunity, because I think he only has one fight left. I believe he kind of suggested that. So he's probably just kind of biding his time and waiting for a good fight to retire with.
Why does everybody want to fight Diego Sanchez? Like, is that just like a easy paycheck, or like, is it that interesting? Is he that big of a draw that where you want to fight Diego Sanchez? Like even Cowboy's gonna fight him next right now, right?
Conor McGregor called him out. You remember that?
Yeah.
Conor McGregor calls him out. Like, I don't understand what's the mystique. Is it Joshua Pasha? What was his name? Joshua Fabia. Yeah, Joshua Fabia. Is it him? Are you like, do you want to compete against that mastermind, of a coach that he has? I don't understand. What is the mystique around Diego Sanchez, Matt? Like, why is Cowboy fighting Diego? I think that they have a beef. I understand that, but why are all these other guys calling out Diego Sanchez?
I 100% believe Conor was trolling when he said that, and I will say that from now until the end of time. Conor was trolling everybody. Like, there's no way Conor thought a fight against Diego would be remotely competitive, especially in 2020 or whenever, that was supposed to happen. Come on, man. Yeah, I get the beef with him and Cowboy, like from Jackson Wink days and stuff like that. But come on, like the whole Joshua Fabia thing and where he's at right now in his career, like I think people are just looking for, I guess, a quote unquote easy payday against a guy that a lot of people know.
Man, that footage of Joshua Fabia chasing around people in the octagon with a knife.
Yeah.
That's one of the best moments in MMA history, I think.
I think if I can take full credit for that, I think I was maybe the first person that ever heard of that. I interviewed Emil Mek Valhalla.
Yeah.
And he had gone there, and like he told me this story before that footage came out, and it was the funniest thing I've ever heard. Like you could tell he was trying to keep it together and not talk too much shit. He's like, yeah, I went in with an open mind, like I'll try anything once. But he just couldn't he couldn't do it, man. Like, it was just, it sounds like it was the most ridiculous thing he's ever been a part of. Like, I don't understand how anybody is training with this guy.
What about, where does he rank amongst like these characters that come in and try to take credit? You know, you got like Steven Seagal.
I think he's surpassed Steven Seagal. Even,
oh, okay.
which is difficult to do, but just, I mean, at least Steven Seagal has some martial arts experience. You know, this guy's like
it's true.
A yoga instructor or something. I'm not sure what his deal is.
Steven Seagal his martial arts experiences on movie sets.
Mm.
You know, the best Steven Seagal story that I ever heard was from this comedian. He was talking about, he was doing a movie, I think it was Under Siege or something. This is back in the day. If you're really young, you probably don't even know what that movie is. But Under Siege, right? This back in like the early 90s, maybe. He said he was on the set of Under Siege with Steven Seagal, and Steven Seagal was in his trailer, and he comes out like a couple hours later, and he tells everybody, and he does the voice and everything, right? He's all like, Steven Seagal comes out and tells the dude, who's the dude that was on Gigolo, the comedy? He's like always in the Adam Sandler movies. And he's like,
Rob
you
Schneider?
can do it. He's in the
Rob
movie.
Schneider.
Rob Schneider. Yeah, Rob Schneider is the one that was telling the story, right? And he said, like, Steven Seagal comes out. He's like, I just read the greatest script ever, and I think I'm gonna star in it. And Rob Schneider's like, oh, who wrote the script? And he's like, I did. You know, like, that's the type of level right there. Like, that's some delusion.
I miss having him in MMA. I wish he was still around taking credit for people's finishes and
It's
stuff.
so good, man. It's so good. Steve Seagal is like a comedian, but he doesn't mean to be a comedian, but it's great, man. It's great to see.
That's hilarious.
Do you remember when Dylan Dennis was trying to fight him for 45 minutes a couple of years ago? Like, that was the guy Dylan Dennis was calling out for a week or something.
Yeah. There's a little suggestion right here, Tom. Maybe Damian Maia versus Robbie Lawler. Loser must retire.
I think Damian Maia wants to retire and probably should after this next fight, just because he's getting up there and he's sustained quite a bit of damage. I don't think Robbie Lawler, it's quite as urgent in his case. I mean, he's been losing, but it just kind of looks like he doesn't care about fighting. Like, he's not losing because he sucks. He's just losing. I mean, look at the last few fights. He just doesn't really look like he is particularly excited to be in there. I think if he can kind of like re-engage with the sport, he maybe has some more wins in the tank. But yeah, it's a good fight. Why not? I mean, it makes sense for both guys, but I don't think Robbie should retire even if he loses.
What do you think, Matt?
I agree with that. I don't like that matchup though. But yeah, I think Damian, he needs to fight somebody that's not gonna, potentially take his head off. I think, as weird as it is, like, the Diego Sanchez fight just makes sense to me. Like, even as weird as it is, it's both guys that are just on their way out. I don't want to see. I mean, yeah, Robbie Lawler's still kind of on his way out too, but he still brings a different element. Like, he's going to try to knock your head off, right? But I just like the Sanchez matchup more. It just makes more sense to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird.
It makes tons of sense, I think. And Damian Maia against Cowboy too would be cool too, because they both are kind of right at the top of the list for UFC wins too, right? So there's that angle. I think Cowboy's still number one, but Damian Maia is like right there behind him. Those are the kinds of guys Damian Maia should be fighting right now. I'm totally with you on that, Matt.
Yeah, with Diego Sanchez and Cowboy and Maia and Lawler, they should just make a fight night with all of those guys, just like one night tournament. Whoever wins stays in the UFC. The other three just has to go to Bellator or PFL or something. I don't know.
What about guys like that are younger, like Mike Perry, but are struggling? I still want to see Mike Perry fight Robbie Lawler before all's said and done.
Yeah, that's a good matchup.
Yeah.
Even like these
Fantastic matchup.
maybe Damian Maia's Bones Jones was talking about, maybe Damian Maia is waiting for one of the Diaz brothers to come out of retirement, and that's his retirement fight right there. They could have a jiu-jitsu match.
Sounds great in theory, but I don't think Nick Diaz is accepting a fight with anybody less than the biggest stars in the sport.
I don't know what you guys' views on Diaz brothers are, but me, I'm just like, I'm past it. You know what I mean? Like,
I've never heard
I'm
of them.
done. I'm
haven't
done
seen these
with
guys
them.
fight recently. Have you?
I'm done with those guys. They're just talk about trying to stay relevant every once in a while. You know what I mean? That's Nate Diaz. That's he just pops in after a card or somebody loses or somebody wins that he has some kind of connection to and talks a little. I just think like with Nate Diaz, if he comes back, there's only one fight for him, which is the Conor trilogy. That's it.
Mhm.
Like there's no other fight, and I'm pretty sure his contract is heavy. Like that when the UFC wants him back, they're gonna give him something big that they could profit off of. Um, there's another suggestion: Mike Perry versus Michelle Pereira. That's a good matchup, to be honest with you.
It's a good fight.
Yeah, it is a good fight. Well, anyways, we're about to shut it down. We've been on for about an hour and a half, man. It's always good, man, to have people on and chat and get different perspectives. It was fun. Matt, let's start with you. Tell us where we can find you, where you're working, what we can expect. Let us know.
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Mr. M Wells Arts. All of my MMA work is at The Body Lock, and mainly on YouTube, where we do, like the reaction videos, the news pieces, predictions, breakdowns, all that kind of stuff like that. With our colleagues over there, Drake Riggs, Ant Walker, Pat Auger. And from time to time, we get Jake to pop on screen during the live stream, But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. That's all I'm doing for the time being. So, that's keeping me occupied.
Yeah, definitely go over there to The Body Lock and subscribe to their channel, and watch their videos, man, and comment, like, do all of that good stuff, because these guys are putting out good content, and join them during their fight companions. I think you guys do some kind of like tailgate thing too, right, Matt?
Yeah, like right now we're just doing before pay-per-views,
Okay.
So we'll do like about an hour to 45 minutes before the card starts.
Mhm.
We'll get in there and get some chats going.
All right, that's cool. Tom, man, what have you been brewing up, man? I know you got something in the works.
Actually, no. Well, first, let me just say I agree with the praise of The Body Lock. That site has some of the best journalism in MMA right now. So, those guys deserve all the props in the world. As for me, actually not a ton going on. I don't have anything cooking. I'm sorry to disappoint. The only places to find me right now are Bleacher Report and right here on SCMP MMA. So maybe something will happen soon, but for the moment, those are my spots.
Yeah, didn't you just put out an article on the Ngannou Stipe fight? Yeah, go check that out.
I'm gonna interview Francis later this week, I believe. So
Oh, you see, you got something brewing.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Just threw that out there, just nonchalantly talking about.
No, I mean I don't have any new job. No new job prospects or anything is what I meant.
All right. Yeah, well, we're talking about the work. You know what I mean? The work. So I'm looking forward to that. I remember when you interviewed John Jones, man. That blew up pretty big, right? For the Bleacher Report.
Yeah, I'm still surprised that happened, to be honest. And I'm like, even when I was on the call, I was like, "Is this really John Jones? Like, am I being punked right here?" But yeah, apparently it was him.
Yeah, for sure, man. Anyways, yeah, man, everybody make sure you guys go follow them on social media. If you are watching this on replay, always leave a comment, criticism, question, whatever, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week. Next week, we're going to have the brothers, 2 more Canadians. For some reason, I have like a million Canadians on the show, but yeah, the brothers from Fight Nights Picks, they're going to come on, and we're going to chat it up and talk about their show and what they do. And probably talk about a bunch of nonsense too, like today, about maybe Colby's going to come out and do another interview, and we're going to talk about Colby, since everybody wants us to do that. But anyways, take care, everybody, and we'll see you next week.